Thank you. So I work at the V&A now, but this project was done when I was working at the Museum of London with my colleague Rose, who can't be here today. I'm just going to figure out how this works. Yes, okay. So Museum of London, as I call it, because it changed name since I've left, tells the story of London and its culture and its people. In 2022, the museum closed to the public in order to be able to reopen a new location in 2026, which will be London Museum. So since 2021, the activities of the museum and of its conservators have mainly been to prepare the move for the new museum in 2026. So part of this project, for the new museum project, was a decant of the permanent galleries at what we call London Wall Galleries. Some of these galleries had been on permanent display for about 12 years, if not more. The database is not very clear, and I was brought into the project in 2021, so I'm not responsible for the previous decisions. We took one book out of many off display, and this is what we saw. After a period of emotional recovery, we found this, and this, and this, and more and more and more, and they kept coming. The very interesting thing that we noticed is that the strap, when it's on display, actually hides the damage, so you can't see the discoloration on this when the strap is on, and you cut the strap and you can see the discoloration. Another thing that was really interesting is that within one case, not all the objects were affected, and we really kind of wanted to understand what had happened. So we reached out to friends. It was a difficult conversation to start with a lot of people. Have you also noticed this change? Most people did not notice this change on their objects, and we think that is because most museums do not display their paper collections for that long. And the people who had seen this damage, they attributed it to light damage. There was a theory among some people that the strap was actually shielding some wavelengths and therefore blocking the rest of the paper from light damage. But because at Museum of London the collections are displayed in mixed cases with archaeological material next to paper, next to wood, we wondered whether maybe the discoloration was actually objects interacting and off-gassing from one another. So we wanted to do an experiment just to decide, is it light or is it pollution? So we selected paper samples from historic stocks, and we strapped them to boards, and then we had two groups of the same samples. One went in the sunlight, literally like in the window of the lab with a lux meter, and the other group went in an aging oven with different pollutants. And we took before and after photography and colorimetry measurements. So this is the setup for the aging oven. So we based this on the ODI testing that happens at the museum. So it's the same procedure as the ODI testing, and we've got paper samples suspended in glass jars with a moisture reserve. And we selected 4 pollutants based on kind of our hunches with regards to what was in our cases, but also just general, like, I was working on negatives at the time, and there was lots of decommissioned objects, so I just cut one up. So the 4 pollutants that we had were acetate negatives, which obviously would contribute some acetic acid pollutant. Degraded iron, which we were not sure what the pollutant would be, but we had noticed lots of cases with degraded iron and the strap marks, so we thought, why not? Archaeological leather, which was lent to us by our conservators in the archaeological department, and essentially, again, same idea, there was archaeological leather displayed next to paper. And also I learned that apparently archaeological leather in London is very sulfur producing, so that's your sulfur pollutant, and then MDF, because MDF, obviously. So the setup for the light essentially looks like this. You've got your sample strapped to board, and they went in the window with a lux meter to accumulate 2.3 megalux hours. And that's also when I found out that our lab didn't have a UV filter on the window, because there was quite a lot of UV damage as well, which is good for the experiment. The results. Oh, you're not going to see the results. This is so dim. The results. So only 2 papers out of the 6 that we played with actually became visibly stripy, these 2. And both of them in response to MDF. This is just a comparison of the straps on the MDF and the no straps on the light damaged object. So we've answered our first question, is it light or is it pollutants? And with colorimetry, we're able to answer a bit more questions. So the first question that we tried to answer was, thank you, has the exposed paper discolored? So we compared before and after colorimetry of the unexposed, unstrapped paper area. And you do find that all papers have changed color. Some papers, such as P3, seems like some seem to be less prone to damage. P3 I've highlighted because it was washed before the experiment. Some papers are very chemically reactive, which, as paper conservators we're aware of. And it does seem that as much as, change has happened in all conditions, MDF seems to have stronger numbers across the same paper sample. The second question we're able to answer with colorimetry is whether the area under the strap has changed color, and again, by taking a measurement before and after and comparing with delta E. And we find that there's actually discoloration in all paper samples under the strap as well. And again, we find some papers are more or less responsive, and again, that MDF has a stronger color change. And then if you combine the two numbers, you get the difference whether things have discolored in relation to the strap or not. So we're comparing the color, let me get this right. Yeah, the color after the strap in the exposed area and under the strapped area after exposure. And so we find that actually most papers have no color difference between the strap and the no strap, as you can see visually on the photos. But MDF, as you can see on the photos, has caused a color disparity. And again, you do find that P6, this P6 paper sample, some paper samples are more reactive than others again. But you do see that MDF has clearly changed. Like visually, there's a strong color difference between the strapped area and the unstrapped area for MDF. So if we go back to these guys, the lessons learned from our little experiment, we actually, well, I didn't because I don't work there anymore, but Rose, my colleague Rose, went back to check what kind of case materials these were all displayed in. And it's no big surprise that they were all in MDF cases, even though they'd been sealed with dacrylite and Marvel seal, punctured Marvel seal in some cases. So our summary of results. The marks appear in dark conditions, so it's not linked to light. That was our first question, and it's answered. Doesn't mean that light doesn't have an effect, but it means that it's not directly caused by light. All paper samples change color under the strapped area, so the strap is not a complete barrier. I think essentially what we're seeing is that the paper is just aging, regardless of the strap, just because of the aging parameters, and bleaching because of the light. MDF causes more discoloration, so it's pollutant dependent. Not all your pollutants are going to have the same effect. I wonder, unproven theory, if it's linked to chemisorption or adsorption of formaldehyde on the surface of the paper. Not all papers discolor at the same rate, so it's linked to your paper characteristics. And again, unproven theory, but maybe supported by the fact that the paper that was washed reacted much less. Perhaps it is the carboxylic groups in degraded paper that actually help formaldehyde chemisorb onto the paper. So the lessons learned, we've identified our culprit, which is MDF, which clearly exacerbates this discoloration on paper objects. We tried to do some localized washing just to kind of maybe make the boundary less strong, but it was actually unsuccessful. Well, inconclusive is the most positive way of saying it. At Museum of London, now we try to remove, we try to remove straps, well, they, not we, I don't work there anymore, try to remove straps from all objects that are still on display in the other locations. And finally, for the new museum projects, rotations and facsimiles are taken into account much more for the new permanent galleries. Thank you.